So today's hot topic is going to be milk. Yeah, I know, super serial subject matter. For this we're going to use two articles. The first is from the IWF, the Independent Women's Forum, where they have a study quoted as saying describing breastfeeding as, quotes, natural is unethical because it reinforces gender roles. This is from a website called the Independent Women's Forum, right? Now while there's a little bit of age to this, there is a reason I'm bringing it up, and it's going to segue nicely onto Peter later, because I'm sure they're just doing it for attention, but I do want to talk about the obvious remarks made in this, that people use as an excuse for the, quotes, naturally occurring event being unethical. So, it's ethically inappropriate for government and medical organizations to describe breastfeeding as natural because the term enforces rigid notions about gender roles, claims a new study in pediatrics, quoted as saying, coupling nature with motherhood can inadvertently support biologically deterministic arguments about the roles of women and men in the family, for example that women should be the primary caretaker, the study says. While there are some very long words that usually circle around why this happens, the fact is, in the majority of families, this does in fact happen. Now as the years have gone by, we have become more accepting of more emotionally involved fathers who are more compassionate, but that's only because society has changed, and by extension so have men. And also, women themselves have become less compassionate in areas where it has not been needed, for example, the workplace, unless of course they've taken up an occupation that is predominantly caring, which for the record, they make up a hefty proportion of carers in this country, and nurses. So there is some logic to it, because while people are free to choose the careers they choose, people are choosing things that suit them best, whether it be because of less stress, or because they themselves want to be able to invest themselves in what they do. Now, to others, they see this as, well, this is a gender stereotype, therefore we must abolish it. I personally think that we should focus less on trying to find problems like that, and simply look for other ways to make different professions more inclusive, without having to exclude others or make others feel like their gender is a problem. It shouldn't be seen that way, and in this instance with this article about the milk, it is a naturally occurring process with biological women. That is a simple fact. It is a natural process because of biology. It is not exclusionary of someone by gender, because it's a natural process that can only occur with one type of person. Okay, possibly two, but if it does with the second, dude, see a doctor. And just before we segue on to Peter, I want to address a couple more quotes from this article. Referencing the natural in breastfeeding promotion may inadvertently endorse a set of values about family life and gender roles. Yes, there is a gender role involved here, in that a woman breastfeeds her child, unless, of course, the man uses one of those hook-on breasts, and he can do it. Or they use powder milk, that formula crap that people like. Yeah, some people can't breastfeed, so they use that. Or they get a prescription milk called Infantrini, which I know exists because my nephew drinks it. It smells really bad, I'm just going to say that now, and it tastes even. So yeah, there are gender roles when it comes to things like breastfeeding, but whether or not it then by extension enforces or reinforces or endorses other value, so what? Family life, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's also nothing wrong with the gender role in a family. You're seeing it as a negative because you believe someone then is being marginalized, but you're not understanding the subtle dynamics within a family, the balance and structure that seems more appropriate. Now, the authors of this paper later go on to argue about how these values and beliefs are not as transparent as they should be. To me, Jessica Matucci and Anne Barnhill are digging for a problem where there isn't realistically one there, which is why this hasn't stacked up. I will, for those who are interested, link the study below. I have read it. It's not great. In fact, I'm going to summarize it with this video.
We ain't going nowhere until you drink all your milk. Oh, you want to see Jesus?
It just spoke to me, okay? Now, what does this all have to do with milk? Since we're going to be obsessed with it, I thought we'd start with breastfeeding and then move on to Peter, because apparently cow's milk is the perfect drink for supremacists. Oh, and a small disclaimer about Peter. I couldn't help but notice you put the tweet out as if it was a fresh article. but your milk article is like the earlier breastfeeding article from 2017, meaning you are dragging up old news and trying to fob it off as new news, which either means you're doing this because you are unable to come up with a new way of passing off this message, or, much like I believe and mentioned earlier, you are doing this to garner more attention like you did with the Warhammer article. Peter, you do like attention, so that is somewhat accurate. Old news. If you're struggling to think of a new way to say a cow is being raped or fisted by somebody wearing a very big glove, why don't you be a poet? Or hire one? As when Christoph Waltz's character in Inglourious Bastards drinks a glass of milk, and a character in a pivotal scene of Get Out sips the cow's secretion, dairy milk has long been embraced as a symbol of white supremacy. Dun dun dun. Anyone getting why so far this might be like the Warhammer thing, another pull for attention? Aside from lactose-tolerant white supremacists, cow's milk really is the perfect drink of choice for all supremacists, since the dairy industry inflicts extreme violence on other living beings. Just to be clear, there are lactose-intolerant white supremacists, I'm sure of it, and they can just drink goat's milk or soy milk for those extra special soy boy supremacists. Like this guy, Soy Fame. Peter is trying to wake people up to the implications of choosing this white beverage and suggesting that they choose something else pronto. I think I'd already made the point. Or perhaps they could drink almond milk, or coconut milk, or I don't know, their own dick milk. Sorry, I may have crossed a line there. The article is going to continue going on about rape for a little bit, because of course, as we all know, artificially inseminating a cow and yes, the process of where milk is then created. It all makes some sense, I get it. And the rape rack turn of phrase I'm not so keen on. In truth, I will concede it is not an ideal way of obtaining milk. Many people, and I know a lot of vegan YouTubers will say this, there are plenty of alternatives to milk to obtain certain nutrients, calcium especially, and I know many of them will counter it with, yes, but surely milk is the more concentrated and easy to digest source, therefore taking the simpler route is better because they don't give a fuck about animal rights. Notice how I'm not giving my opinion on that? Yeah, I don't want to. I grew up on farms, okay? But back into the article on the control over your mind segment. It's not natural for people to drink cow's milk, which is meant for newborn calves. Humans are the only animals who drink the milk of other species and who drink milk beyond infancy. You try drinking tea without a splash of milk. It's not good, okay? Unless it's chamomile, or one of those other funny spiced teas. There's a nice Christmas one I might get. Yummy. The dairy industry spends millions funding misleading ad campaigns that urge people to drink cow's milk, when medical studies show that dairy products are a health hazard. Unlike soy or almond milk, for instance, cow's milk contains no fiber or complex carbohydrates and is full of saturated animal fat and cholesterol. Well, I think isn't that why people will then obtain milk that is semi-skimmed or skimmed? Doesn't that reduce that? Consuming dairy products is also linked to developing heart disease as well as prostate, breast and ovarian cancer. Very true. It is linked. But dairy product is a very broad term. That would include things like cheese, which I don't touch. In fact, I would say for me personally, if I'm going to take this from a personal stance, I drink maybe 10 to 20 milliliters of milk a day at most. You see, I'm one of those fussy guys that doesn't do milk much, other than the occasional cup of tea, and even then it's not much. Might doesn't make right. Before you pour a glass of the white stuff, please remember that it isn't the right stuff. Well, it is if it's their personal choice. These systems exist because they've been built, and people will then supply demand and so on and so on. You are arguing from a position, a very vegan position of animal rights. They need to be a thing. I tend to agree with you on a number of things. I really do. Maybe you have a point to this as well, actually. But perhaps maybe not with Peter spear-tipping this, because they are pure ass cancer at this point, and any good point they make, considering half the crap they've done before. And I say only half the crap they've done before, because if I'd included all of it, hula. If you feel that all life should be free of violent control, choose soy, almond, rice, cashew, or coconut milk. Well, at least I knew of 3 of them. The next time that you go shopping or order coffee, With so many different types of cruelty-free delicious milks on the market, opposing supremacists has never been easier. Doesn't making all that milk of all those different types require a rather substantial amount of land, and isn't it in and of itself quite resource-heavy, to the point where it isn't as efficient to farm? And to do so would then mean tearing down more habitats for other animals to make space for it. It's back to that whole point of efficiency. It's easier to do it that way, and there is a price to pay, and there is one obviously then that someone has to live with. It's not a good choice. I think I'm being dragged off topic into a moral argument. And as we all know, my argument, my position, has always been no lives matter. So I'm going to leave it on that, because then I don't get dragged into a moral argument about artificially inseminating a cow or tearing down habitats to make quite resource-heavy, low-yield farming produce for milk. Anyway, I hope everyone has a lovely Tuesday, and I keenly await all the negative comments for making any and all remarks I made about the comments, even though barely any of it touched upon white supremacy whatsoever. Did anyone notice that? It was nothing more than clickbait. I know, imagine my shock, and thank you all for listening.
Oh, goddowns.
In your ass.
Imagine my shock.